So I become a Nazi, yeah, bitch, I'm the villain.
Bruh, even the mustache men be like, ain't no way, ain't no fucking way. So one of the trending drama of the past week is the so-called Avengers of the Manosphere, the Avengers of the Red Pill, the Avengers of looks maxing. Andrew Tate, you look fine, my homie. Now, I generally make it a point to pay very little attention to goofy-ass internet edgelords, and if for some reason I ever have to, I only listen to a fair range of second-hand sources who tell it like it is, and with receipts. So at the center of their most recent shitstorm is their chanting along to the infamous hit single Heil Hitler. Of course, with the resultant backlash, they're trying to make it about who did what and who snitched on who, but the main focus of the controversy are their actions and by extension, the excesses of the Red Pill movement and the poisoning of the social wellspring vis-a-vis free speech. Now, a little bit of background here. I first got to know about Sneako, Myron, and Andrew Tate through the YouTubers Abba and Preach. This was back in 2021-22 at the height of the Red Pill movement when Abba and Preach still had this semi-regular back and forth with characters in that world. And shout out to Abba and Preach, by the way. Now, fast forward a couple of months, a year maybe, and these guys got themselves railroaded. You know, they got banned, they got demonetized, and embroiled in legal issues. Sneako went through some semblance of a character arc. Andrew had this Muslim version of a come to Jesus moment. Myron, not so much. Fuck that dude, by the way. I guess the most surprising thing for me is the pearl clutching at the antiques of this grown-ass man with a severe case of arrested development. Anyone who's followed them since the height of the Red Pill movement will tell you ain't nothing to see here. Just old regular outrage farming, seeking relevance through notoriety. Wash, rinse, and repeat. That's the formula all along. When you really peer behind the curtains, come to find out these guys barely stand for anything. 1 minute Nick Fuentes hates Muslims, the next he defending them. 1 minute they want to see the Epstein file, the next minute Epstein based, Epstein a real badass. There is no well-defined ideological backbone to these people. It's all agitation and aggravation and trolling and gaming the outrage algorithm for personal gain. They have no personality beyond being contrarian for the heck of it. I'll grant though that Sneako kinda threw me in for a loop there. Having watched him go from top G disciple to Muslim to openly quitting the Red Pill, the fact that he still butted up with weirdos like these seemed a little sauce. It never really mattered much to me though. In my mind, I chalked it up to him being a better man, you know, by keeping an open door and all that. Maybe rolling with them on a regular basis might get them to see things differently, possibly help them moderate their more extreme impulses and outbursts. I don't know his intentions or motivations, but hearing him on stream make reference to the Matrix got me thinking. Bro, we thought you wasn't about that life no more. Look, to me, there is something just cynical about knowing some people are a type of way and still choosing to hang out with them. You are either genuinely trying to get them out of their metaphorical white robes, or you are in on the grift and you'd rather enjoy the benefit of access and proximity to influence rather than stand on newfound principles. I'm sorry if it seems I'm going in a little harder on Sneako. It's just that with his reversion to Islam and putting in the work and hanging out with the Dawa bros, I expected some degree of humility and contrition rather than doubling down. The irony of flirting with Hítlër Love surely ain't lost on people who knew what Hitler was about. Anybody wanna tell me how crazy it is that this lineup of Führer fanboys are mostly comprised of individuals who wouldn't even make the entry-level Aryan race draft? Whose very existence, mind you, would have been very, very impossible under the anti-miscegenation laws. Like seriously, this whole lineup looked like a layup to a very, very bad joke. An Aryan, a black Klansman, and a quisling of house ninjas walk into a bar. And this whole nonsense about Heil Hitler being just a song that didn't hurt nobody and having the legal right to play and sing along, sure you do. But just because shit is legal, don't mean it is moral. To see Sneako be unapologetic about the Heil Hitler song kinda rubs me the wrong way because I don't think in a decade or two from now he gonna be okay with a bunch of internet dorks bopping their heads to a song titled Heil Netanyahu and making light of the genocide of Palestinians. I don't think so. Whatever your views about the genocidal state of Israel are, and that is a fucking sick society by the way, Hitler was objectively an atrocious stain on humanity that everybody should look back on as a cautionary tale about man's capacity for extreme evil. So proudly belting off lyrics to a song that is basically written to trigger outrage and by implication trigger generational trauma is objectively one of the most piece of shit thing a person can do. Personally, I think this whole idea of free speech devoid of any sense of self-restraint really needs to be called out for the bullshit it really is. There really is no such thing as unlimited freedom of speech. When you think about it for a minute, there really isn't. Consequences are natural checks on all kinds of freedoms, all kinds. It don't matter what kind of consequence or how it even manifests itself, whether it be through government suppression or excommunication or even vigilante justice. Consequences are natural checks on freedom, and it is hardwired into reality. And no amount of constitutional protections and proclamations is gonna change that. Sooner or later, consequences catch up with you. These guys out here acting like they free speech absolutists, but when push comes to shove, they be flipping the fuck out. Yeah, we've seen all that masculine energy around them ladies they got over on their podcast. I won't be surprised if these guys got hit harder than they were a few years back. I will not be surprised if they are shadow banned or completely shut off from the privileges that they currently enjoy as streamers and content creators. In this current climate of billionaire consolidation of media platforms, in this climate of quote-unquote limiting free speech to protect free speech, I will not be surprised if these guys get shit-canned and tossed to the bottom of the garbage barrel. And as for Myron, I don't wish it on him, but I sure as hell will not be surprised if his Zig Heil is the last thing he does before getting turned into a chalk outline. I swear to God, the rate at which he been going all these years, someone might just roll up on him, and it ain't gonna be nothing like Charlie Kirk's murder. No widespread condemnation, no stately funeral, no national holiday, no lowering of the flag, not even a graffiti or a mural courtesy of Elon Musk. It's gonna be more like women celebrating Kevin Samuel's death with rollerblade parades on the street of Miami. Like I said, I do not wish it on him, but I won't be surprised if it happened. There is a certain degree of privilege that the Sneako and Myron types have that comes from, proximity to the cesspool of influence they currently ingratiate themselves to. It's a privilege that grants them temporary immunity that allows them safely and carelessly interact with and launder really dangerous ideas and help mainstream weirdo behavior at the expense of other people's humanity, especially ethnic minorities, who may one day end up being on the receiving end of the really shitty ideas they helped launder into normalcy. As for Sneako, I just want to say this, as with any well-adjusted human being, you will always struggle to stay on the straight and narrow. You'll always struggle, whether you were raised proper or you had some checkered past and you're trying to clean up your act, or even if you're simply a half-decent human being trying to maintain some semblance of moral equilibrium on a regular. The allure of letting loose will always be there, and your susceptibility to falling off the wagon will always be dependent upon, among other things, the strength of your convictions, the strength of your moral character, and the influence of the company you keep. You may not necessarily be the company you keep. However, hanging out with sketchy individuals at best says something about your judgment of moral character, and at worst it erodes your principles and values over time and reveals the degree of compromise that you are willing to negotiate away to the detriment of said principles and values. There is a subtle and artful difference between exploring tragedy through the medium of dark comedy and making light of tragedy. There is a fine thin line between poking fun at tragedy as a coping mechanism and simply turning tragedy into a bad punchline. Chanting Heil Hitler and Sieg Heilen is not edgy comedy, it is pure malice. And that is especially true when purveying hate and racism and sexism and conspiracy is the bread and butter for the kind of crowd you hang out with, Sneako. And to all of y'all, I just want to say this. You guys are running out of runway. There's going to be a limit at some point. You can push this lame-ass horseplay only too far. This whole rage-baiting edgelord bubble is gonna burst. It's not gonna be as fun and as daring and as triggering, and expressing your identity through contrarianism will eventually go out of style, and you'll be left with a world whereby you have either faded into the hindsight of respectable society, or you're forced to grow up, or you are in a situation whereby you have inadvertently secured yourself the last piece of news and the late spot on the tree. Anyway, bye.